This week I'm heading to 3 different reserves across Norfolk. I'll be looking for some of Britain's rarest, most secretive, and its most spectacular wildlife encounters, with the hope of capturing it all on film. So come along and join us for a week in the wild.
Too many people for Jersey pops.
Now heading from the inland out towards Norfolk, our first stop just made sense. If you've been here before, you might recognise it. Today I'm at Welney. I'm going to have a look what this place has to offer and see some of the hides and see if I can find myself a spoonbill. Welney sits pretty much halfway between Cambridge and King's Lynn. It's going to serve as the first stop on our little adventure, and I'm looking particularly for a spoonbill at this location. With a fully equipped cafe, a shop for all your impulse buying needs, and plenty of educational resources to hand, this has to be one of the fanciest entrances to a nature reserve I've ever encountered. It's also worth mentioning that it's definitely one of the most accessible, with lifts and ramps as well as level footpaths pretty much throughout the whole reserve. Your journey starts by crossing this big bridge from the visitor centre to your first hide, and you'll come across these. Look at those binocular shaped cutouts. I just had to try them. Alas, my binoculars didn't quite fit. But if you want to be just as amazed as Cameron is, there are bigger cutouts throughout. So time for the first hide, and remember what I said about accessible? Even the hides have automatic doors. A quick look through the sightings board, and I'm not filled with hope. There's no spoonbill on it. But it looks like a comfortable hide, so time to sit down and try my luck. Despite it being the middle of the day, there was plenty of action down on the water. Lots and lots to see. With the bright sunlight, it actually felt like its own little reflection pool. It's the middle of summer and this is a very popular reserve, so pretty soon after we arrived, the hide started to fill up. So we moved to the edge of the hide. Either side you've got these big open traditional hides with no windows, perfect for filming or photography. Overlooked by our new little friends, we started to work our way across, filming all of the different bird species we could see. It was at this point that the local cow herd decided to take a dip in the pool, and this caused chaos amongst the birds. But in doing so, they did us a huge favour, because hiding amongst the greylags, all along, was this. What a stroke of luck. It's not always that you encounter your target species, let alone as quickly as we have on today's visit, so not one to jinx myself, it was time to head off to the next location and see exactly what this place had to offer. Under the heat of the midday sun, I certainly wasn't going to pass up the opportunity to stay in the shade for a moment and explore exactly what lives in the water here. They had this little pond dipping station set up, and I gave it a go. Several attempts later, with absolutely nothing to show for myself and my efforts, I decided it was time to move on. It could be just me, but there's a familiar feeling whenever you step into a wildlife hide. No matter where it is, it's like coming home after a long absence. In this hide, you're surrounded by reeds, and these are full of warblers, and I am absolutely useless at catching those on film. Here are some of my attempts. But in the struggle, there's always room for success, and although I couldn't get the birds, I'll take this. I'm quite happy with this shot. But my attention was quickly stolen by something that was a first for me. Across the field, just in front of me, a new species lifted its head. Being further away, I'm plagued in this shot by the heat distortion. It's turned the entire image into mush, but you can kind of still see all the details to make out that this is a whooper swan. I've not seen one before despite coming fairly close a couple of times, so it's nice to finally tick this one off my list. And battling the heat distortion prepared me for what came next. There he is. Okay, he's further back. Did you see it? Quietly perched in the distance, around 500 metres from the hide, and just barely visible, there's a large bird of prey. Just a few moments after spotting this one, another one appeared. So far away from the hide, and I'm at full stretch of how far the lens can actually zoom. Even the binoculars, I'm struggling to see what's actually going on, and even to get like a positive idea. I think when I get it back and put it on a big screen, I'll be able to tell, but until then, it's just cool to watch. It's really cool to watch. Now, I can't really identify them from where I am, given how far away they are, but looking back on the footage and basing off the location where I was, I'm going to assume that these are marsh harriers with the coloration of juveniles, and that where they are is actually their nesting spot. But again, I'm just guessing here based on some speculation. If you know for certain what type of birds these are, definitely comment below and let me know, because I'd love to find out. They stayed with me for a little while, and I watched as the behaviour unfolded and tried to understand somewhat what was going on. Having spent most of the afternoon at this reserve, it was coming up to the closing time, so I decided to head back to the car park and get ready to head to our camping spot for the night. It was a fair drive away, so I made sure to get comfortable, but the road had other ideas. We're now heading from Welney to Snettisham, which means we're driving on what can only be described as a rally track road. It's not really a very well maintained road. They did tell us at the reserve, they said it was a bit of a rough road, but it was something else, and we had to stop filming. So now it's evened out a bit. I've slowed right down. I'm doing 25, and we are cruising, but it's going to be a long trip. We arrived a full 3 hours before the others, so naturally we decided to look for wildlife in the local pub. Eventually though, we had to head back to the campsite to meet with the others because they told us they were just around the corner.
Too many people for Jersey pops.
As the sun began to set in our beautiful countryside surroundings, the boys decided to set up camp. I hate camping. So it felt fitting for me to allow my camp to set itself up. How, you ask? Now I'm sure there's people out there for whom the idea of camping in the countryside is a wonderful idea. I'm just not cut out for it. I'll give you 3 guesses as to whose idea it was to go camping.
This is a 3-season tent that can handle up to 30 centimetres of snow as well.
But I'm not looking at 30 centimetres of snow being like, oh mate, I'd love to sleep in that.
Eventually though, our home from home was set up and we're all ready for bed. Are you happy in your camping world, James, with your fish and chips? Very authentic.
Mount Mug.
The next day we're up at dawn because it's not by coincidence that we've chosen this particular date to go. This is the Snettisham mudflats, and it's famous for its spectaculars. In other words, a bunch of birds flying over your head. On paper it doesn't really sound that great, but in reality, it's something incredibly special.
I'm a birder. This is what birders do.
Thousands of people must attend these throughout the year, and with this being my second one, I now can understand why. So that's my second attempt at the Snettisham Spectacular. The first one we got was really hazy because we came at sunset. I definitely prefer the sunrise. It's been absolutely spectacular. We were lucky enough to have them fly right over the top of us. And just for context, if you're interested in where I'm located, so just up that way is the hide. Maybe, wait, I don't know if you can see the flashing lights that are up there, but that is where the accessible parking is. So maybe 200 meters down the beach, and we are just before the land hooks back into the bay. So really great position, lucky enough to have them come straight over. They've all landed in this lake just behind, and there is a hide there, so I'm actually going to head over, go and meet up with the rest of the guys and see if we can get some water level shots. But great experience, really enjoyed it. Whilst filming my bit to camera, I missed the opportunity to get a seat in the hide, and by the time I got there it looked like this. So the hides were a little bit busy for me this time, so we're going to head to a new reserve and hopefully find some new and exciting encounters. Keeping with the wetland and water theme, our final reserve is somewhere I've never been before, but my expectations are pretty high. The trip so far has been nothing short of spectacular, if you'll forgive the pun, so I'm hoping for big things here. When I'm in environments like this, I try to focus really hard on sound. Often sound will give away an animal's location long before you see it. And with this next find, that's exactly how we found it. It was nibbling away, and it's probably one of the most secretive animals I've ever had the pleasure of filming. It's a charismatic little water vole. Encountering these endearing little creatures is something of a rarity these days. Once common across the British Isles, they've unfortunately become under threat from things like habitat loss and predation. Photographing or filming water voles is always like a game of hide and seek. They're completely unfazed by your presence, but they can be a little bit shy. If you're familiar with the old tale of Wind in the Willows, this right here is Ratty. There's so much personality in every movement they make. It's easy to see how they've become immortalized in stories. With encounters as magical as this one, And as long as the animal isn't stressed, I feel responsible to share it with others. Everyone should have a share in this moment. I think that's one of the biggest rewards you get from working with wildlife, is seeing others enjoy it the same way that you do. And just like that, it was gone. I'm going to try my luck in one of the hides. It'll be nice to get out of the sun for a while. So I'll just run you through the setup that I'm using today. I've kept it really lightweight, sort of, because I'm moving from location to location. So what I've gone for is, I'm using the FX30 to film today. It's really hot, so having the fan cool is definitely going to help. Sometimes when I film with other cameras like the A7 IV or the A7S III in weather like this at high frame rates, they can overheat. So I've gone for the FX30 today. It is APS-C and it gives me a little bit extra reach, which is also good. On top here, I've got the Sennheiser MKE600, which is it's just my go-to microphone for anything wildlife related. It's a great scratch microphone in that if you don't want to use this particular audio, you're just using it to sync up, you can do. But if you do want to use the audio, the quality that comes out of this thing is fantastic. So it's a great combination with the FX30 for getting you your files that you can work with and create a real nice story. And then I've got the Sigma 150-600 with a nice big Vari-ND on the front here. That's going to help me to make sure I can get nice and close to the subject, but also keep my exposure level and make sure I stick to that 180 rule of shutter speed and frame rate, which is going to help me to get that cinematic look that I'll kind of have in most of my videos. So I've got this attached to the shelf here in the hide, because if you've ever tried to use a tripod to film with, it's really difficult to get close enough to the hide window to get a great amount of movement and to still be able to track your subject. Plus, you're then not able to sit down. So what I've done, I've bought this clamp. It's not endorsed, I've actually bought this with my own money. It's a small rig clamp. There's Manfrotto clamps, there's all different brands make these big clamps. So I've got the clamp here, and then I've just put my tripod head up on the top, and that gives you all the mobility that you'd be needing for film work. And that enables you to move the camera really smoothly, the same way you would on a tripod, without having the clumsy setup. It's really neat and clean and easy to use. So if you're into filming and you want an in-hide setup, this is a really easy thing to do. You are reliant on the hide having a good shelf though, so it's hit and miss with that one. But this particular reserve, the hides are fantastic. So definitely check one of these out if you're heading this way. I spent my last hour at the reserve watching the various species that visited the hide I was sat in. I even got a very fleeting visit from a kingfisher. So right now, I'm surrounded by tiny little frogs. They're absolutely everywhere, and I think that sums up this trip perfectly. My little week in the wild, as I visited the tranquility of Welney, the chaos above the skies of Snettisham, then I finished that off by visiting Sculthorpe Moor and had a fantastic end to a spectacular week in the wild. I think that's cool, right? Wait, frogs. See if I can get into my hand. And there's loads of little frogs. Okay. All right, ready?